It's the Ugly American Werewolf in London Rock Podcast with your hosts, the Wolf and Action Jackson, who are keeping rock alive by talking classic rock, hard rock, progressive rock, heavy metal, 80s music, early MTV, UK vs. US chart success, and much more. This is the home of classic album and live concert reviews and your place for interviews with artists and legends. You're rocking with the Wolf. Hey out there, rock and rollers. Welcome to episode number 183 of the Ugly American Werewolf in London Rock Podcast. Brought to you by me, your host, Mac B. the Wolf, and I will be joined, as usual, by my partner in crime from the East Coast of the United States, Gary Action Jackson. And we appreciate everyone who tuned in last week to hear our interview with Guy Fletcher, a rock and roll Hall of Famer from his days in Dire Straits, Mark Knopfler's right-hand man for the last 30-plus years, who came on to promote the charity single for Going Home, the Guitar Heroes version, 10 minutes with 60 legends on the track, adding guitar and a little keyboard here and there. You had Sting on the bass, you had Ringo on the drums, you had so many great folks on there. It was great to have Guy on telling stories about putting that single together, working in British Grove Studios with Mark, touring and recording with Mark and Dire Straits over the years. It was an honor to have him on, and we hope you listen to it. And if you haven't, go back and listen to that right now. This week we get back to our live concert reviews, a band I've been trying to see for a while here, and that's Mammoth WVH, better known as Wolfgang Van Halen's band, who have a second album out now and are touring around the nation. In fact, I caught the last night of their American tour. It's a headliner tour. They're doing clubs and smaller venues, but they're also out opening for people like Metallica in Europe and the United States this summer. I think they're opening for the Foo Fighters later this year. And they'll be back in the fall to have their own small headline tour, I believe with Nita Strauss opening for them. So this is a band coming up, and obviously they have a little brand name recognition. Van Halen is one of the most famous names in rock. Of course, Wolfgang's father, Eddie, is one of the most celebrated rock guitarists in history, and he was in Van Halen at the end of their run as a bass player. I did see him play with Dave and his dad and his Uncle Al, but I never had the chance to see him play his own music. I was supposed to at the Metallica concerts we reviewed in Amsterdam last year. I think shows 127 and 128 cover that pretty well. That I was supposed to see him live, but I got there late and I missed him and I was bitter about it. But then when I found out he was coming to town, I'm like, yes, I'm not going to miss that again. So we're going to go over his set list, 15 songs, all from his first two albums, and talk about his crowd work, his guitar mastery, and everything about going to see a live show. But first, we have a little business to take care of. As always, we like to mention that we are proud members of the Pantheon Podcast Network, a family of about 100 different shows. There really is something in there for everyone. You can check them out at pantheonpodcast.com or follow at PantheonPods. And we have to give a shout out to our sponsors, rarevinyl.com. And I appreciate everybody going out there and making some big orders at rarevinyl.com, because not only does it save you 10% off your purchases and increase the quality of your vinyl and record collections, but it is a help to our show. They have over 250,000 items in stock. They procure things from all around the world, and they ship all around the world. So it doesn't matter if you're in South Dakota or South Africa, you can go to rarevinyl.com, find something that you love, and then when you check out, you use code UGLY, and you can save yourself 10%. Now, it's a one-time code, but it's good for one entire order, not just one item. So don't just go and find one $7 single that you always wanted. Find that and the first edition album of your favorite band that you never got, and the Japanese import that you never found, and the cool picture disc that you always wanted. Buy all those things and get 10% off all of them with the code UGLY at rarevinyl.com. Now back to Mammoth. It was an interesting crowd in that at 50, I was kind of in the middle of the road. I wasn't one of the older guys. I wasn't one of the younger guys. I was kind of in the middle. There were definitely older people there who were huge, obviously, Van Halen fans back in the day and wanted to see what the younger Van Halen is up to these days. There are also some young kids there who are like, hey, this is an up-and-coming band, and this is who I'm into, and this is who I want to see. So there's a nice, diverse crowd in there on a cool night in Louisville. So that's enough out of me. Let's get to the show. We're reviewing Mammoth with Wolfgang Van Halen live in Louisville here on The Wolf. So, a little more than a year after I was supposed to see Wolfgang Van Halen's Mammoth open for Metallica in Amsterdam, and I missed it because I thought they were on second. They were on first. I get there, they're already over. Like, totally missed them. It's like, God, I always wanted to see them. Now I wait a year. They put out a new album, and I get to see them. And I get to see them in a small place, Jackson. It's basically a club, a GA club, you know.
Okay. And you get to see the full set list, too, not the truncated first band on a 3 bill.
You get 8 or 9 songs or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why don't we, I don't think we've talked about this before, about the venue, the Mercury Ballroom. Is this, tell me a little bit about that.
It's basically a bar.
Mm-hmm.
It's downtown. It's right next to the Palace Theater, which is kind of like one of those old, classy theaters that has like Greek reliefs on the ceiling, you know.
Oh, okay.
And it's got, you know, like Greek statues, kind of like when you face the stage. There's all this kind of amazing stuff. It's a very nice place. It's kind of typical of the kind of theaters they built 100 to 125 years ago, and was probably a movie theater for a while too.
Okay.
And in the Palace, I've seen some of the best bands of all time. Mercury is a lot smaller. And I mean, yeah, like I said, it's basically a club. You come in, there's no seating. Now, upstairs, there's seating kind of right in front of the stage. But on the sides, it's GA upstairs. Okay. And I think and I've sat in those seats, I think, once before when I saw the Church and the Psychedelic Furs. They're kind of like for season ticket holders or for people who give money or people who buy tickets to everything or whatever. We didn't even go up there. We just stayed downstairs because we had a nice view, and it was a killer night to see a show, actually.
Well, it sounds a lot like the House of Blues in Orlando. It's kind of the same deal, but like you get in and you kind of have to know what you're doing, because once you get set, that's it, and you don't want to miss. Like if you're on the wrong side of the stage, you're kind of going to get screwed, because if you get yourself up close enough, if you try and move, you're never going to get back there again.
Yeah, I got you. But it's not huge. I mean, I think it was. We're basically sitting underneath where, if you carve out the top upstairs, we're basically sitting right under that. There's a pole to our left, but then we see straight to the stage. Okay. And I could have taken about 8 steps and been at the front of the stage.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the nice part about this is that Wolf is front and center. So it's not like you're going to miss. If you're on the left, he's on the right, or vice versa. You just kind of aim for the middle and you'll be fine.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we did. And we walked in. Well, first of all, there is an opening act for Wolfgang Van Halen. Before we get into all that, let's get into his music a little bit.
Okay.
I'll admit, though, that I heard some of his songs off the first album, because everybody was like, hey, Wolfgang made a new album, and it's called Mammoth, which is what Eddie's first band was called, and it's pretty cool, and they've got songs like Don't Back Down and Mammoth and Distance and stuff. It's pretty good. I never had that album. Now, I heard quite a few songs, and you put it as on one of your top albums of the year a couple years back when we did the year in review.
Yeah. I was going to say I did that because I remember there was a interview with Eddie. Wolf had to be probably 5 or 6 years old or something. Oh yeah, man, this guy's going to be great. He's going to be better than me. Blah blah blah. Okay, whatever you say, Dad. Sure. If I had a dime for every time Michael Jordan's son was he MVP. Okay, cool. And no, it turns out he's the real deal. So when he put that record out, I was very interested in it, and the fact that I know on the first record he played everything, wrote all the songs, sang, played all the parts. Right. It was pretty impressive.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm like, all right, well, Jackson's got the first one. The second one came out. I'm like, all right, yeah, I'll go pick up the second one and see what it's all about. And I listened to it a few times. Like, yeah, this is pretty good. You know, his voice is interesting to me, but his guitar playing is really cool. And he does a lot of that tapping that made his father so very, very famous. And so I'm like, yeah, okay, this is a fun album. I like it. And then when I saw that they were coming to town, I was like, yes, jump on it. You know, just go. It'll be great. And it's kind of one of those that I bought it and forgot about it because it was like 5 months in advance.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm like, all right, yeah, I'll go to that, whatever. And I was going to go solo, but then I've gotten to know this guy, Brian, who's a pretty good guitar player in his own right. And he plays in a band, and he also could gig out on like a cover band and stuff like that. So it's fun to go with someone who actually knows how to play the guitar and knows their way around a guitar. Not only to kind of understand some of the equipment, but to understand, you know, kind of what he's up to, and maybe talk about, you think it's a wah pedal up there? Yeah, it sounds like a wah to me. So because it was general admission, he eventually bought a ticket, and then we went down there together. But what did you think about the second album compared to the first album?
I think it was a good kind of follow up. I definitely like the first album better. But I mean, there's some good songs on this. I haven't listened to it as many times as the first one, but I think it was a solid follow up. You always kind of have that sophomore. How are we going to do this? Is this going to be as good? Is it going to be a fall off? Because you don't have that much time to write the music, and you're probably on tour when you're doing it anyway.
Yeah, it would seem he gets a lot of gigs. He's opening for Metallica. He's open for a lot of people. He also does his own headlining stuff. It's smaller venues, sure, but still, he is in demand. And even he said during the show, like, we were surprised how quickly we could do our own headline tour. Because it's hard to do with just one album because you just don't have the material.
Yeah. Well, and, he's famous for not wanting to do anything else.
Right. And I don't blame him.
I don't blame him either. It's not his. I mean, if he was in the band, okay, fine. And I'm talking about like from the beginning. Yeah, there's that weird, like, Robert Plant had the thing at the beginning where he wasn't going to do Zeppelin songs.
Right.
But he was never really in the band. And so he does not want to be basically a cover for Ed, which I respect him for doing that because he could easily just play Van Halen songs.
Oh, yeah, if he wanted to, he could just go around doing that. But he doesn't want to. He shouldn't do that. His dad wouldn't want him to. He would want him to do his own stuff.
Correct.
However, given the age of the crowd, I had a feeling some people were still hoping that might happen.
He was going to bust out Panama at some time.
Because there were some teenagers or college kids there, just a few. And I'm like, okay, that's good. There were a lot of people our age there, around our age.
Okay.
And then there were people like in their 60s and maybe even 70 there. And I'm like, wow, this is an older crowd than I ever thought it was going to be. I knew there would be people our age there because, they love Van Halen, but I'm not a moron,
Okay.
But I mean, a couple of people were like, I'm surprised they didn't have canes with them. They were so old.
It's interesting because I have to imagine it had to be some kind of connection. Like you said, in the back of their mind, they're thinking, come on, just give me one, just give me something, or, maybe play a little bit of Eruption or something like that. I
know. Well, but the thing is, when he does that tapping, it's Eruption-like. He's not going to break into Eruption. But some of the songs, he, especially like Take a Bow and stuff like that, I mean, he is tapping with both hands, and it's really cool. Yeah, and you don't see it anywhere else.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of where people get a little bit sore about that because he's just choosing not to. It's not like, well, I could never play it. You could 100% play all of that. We know that. I've seen him play Eruption, bits and pieces of it at like the charity concert, and in one or two interviews, he's kind of broken it out a little bit. So he's got the skills to do it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he knows how. I mean, he probably learned that before he learned Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, But I always thought it was interesting that it's a 3-guitar band, but nobody solos. It's not like a Lynyrd Skynyrd 3-guitar band. It's a 3-guitar band, and Wolfie's the only one who solos. The other two are just there for rhythm, and they have a bass player, and he's quite a character. So, yeah, it's interesting.
It does seem like a little much. And I mean, I understand, like, if you were going to sing and play the guitar, you might want somebody back there to play rhythm to kind of fill in when you take a step back, but to have two other guys, that is it seems like overkill. I mean, did it sound like that?
Well, he made a comment talking about how we are a layered guitar band. And then once I understood that made sense because you're kind of putting all this different stuff in there underneath and it's all guitars. And like you say, he recorded it all himself anyway. So he's like, if he wants 2 rhythm tracks that are him anyway, and then he comes over the top, I guess that's fine. Yeah. But he told a story about how they had to do a few gigs without the 2 rhythm guitars. Like both of them couldn't make the gig for some reason. So they were a 3-piece, drums, bass, and Wolfie doing the singing, playing lead. And they called it their Mammoth 182 I guess, moment because they were a three-piece. And, after they did it, they went off fine. And the bass player and the drummer are like, oh, yeah, hey, man, we did it. We pulled it off. He goes, yeah, you guys didn't have to fucking change anything.
Yeah.
You're doing everything the same. I'm the one who had to adjust.
Right.
But it came about because there were 3 shows we played 2 years ago due to an emergency where we played it as a 3-piece. It was just me, Garrett, and Ronnie, in which I refer to those 3 shows as the Mammoth 182 shows. And yeah, they were fun. It was a challenge being the only guitar in a layered guitar fucking band, but we got through it, I think. I know Ronnie and Garrett were like, dude, that was fine, we did it. It's like, yeah, you guys didn't have to fucking change shit.
So, I mean, maybe one day there's a 3-piece in his future. I don't know. But he seemed pretty natural up there on stage, talking to the crowd, thanking people profusely for coming out. And this was the last night of his American tour for a while. He goes next week. He runs back to Europe to open for Metallica again.
Oh, jeez.
Before he comes back to the States to do, I think he's doing more Metallica shows and doing more of his own shows. So, I mean, look, for a young band, they're out there working. They're getting it done.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive because I don't know what his financial situation is. I'm sure he's fairly well off. So he doesn't have to do any of this. So the fact that he not only does that he makes the music, but that he works so hard is pretty impressive also. Because I mean, like you said, he's here, he's in Europe. I understand that there's no way you're going to turn down a opener from Metallica. That's pretty impressive. But yeah, just the fact that he's just so passionate about this music, I think speaks a lot for him as an artist.
Well, absolutely. He kind of signed up for this a long time. I mean, I did actually see him play with Van Halen with Dave once.
Oh, okay.
Playing bass, of course.
Well, now that was that on the first tour, or how did that?
Oh, let's see. I don't know if I can come up with.
Okay, but my point was going to be because the first tour they went out on, there was that bad feelings or whatever, where they were really just piping in Michael Anthony's vocals, and then it was like, oh, can this kid, can he really sing? And no, it turns out he really can. I don't know whether he wasn't that strong of a singer at that point in time, or they just didn't feel like it was right. But I mean, I think he's got a pretty good voice, taking into account he can do everything else also.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. He does work hard. I mean, yes, he's going to tour with Metallica, but that's only one gig for like 2 weeks or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. So like he goes to Helsinki to open for Metallica, but then the next night he plays a smaller gig in Finland. He goes to Stockholm to open, but then he goes to Gothenburg, Sweden, and he goes to Copenhagen, Denmark, and slides into Hamburg, in the middle. He goes to play Grass Pop Metal Fest and Tons of Rock Fest and Hell Fest and Rock Horrors Festival, and so yeah, those are premier gigs being open for Metallica in front of 50, 60, 70,000, however many people. But then they're squeezing stuff back in, and then he comes back and he opens for like the Foo Fighters in some spots, right?
Jeez.
And then back with Metallica again, so he's not letting any grass grow under his feet. He may be opening for a lot of people. And I mean, to be honest with you, Metallica and the Foo Fighters, you can't get much bigger than that as far as, who could you open for in rock music? That's as big as it gets.
Yeah. I mean, maybe the Stones, but other than that, no.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty amazing. So hats off to him.
And you say that too. I think that really speaks to his music, because if it was more of a novelty act, okay, but he would not. I mean, maybe people would show up to see him play in the clubs, but there's no way he'd be opening for Metallica and the Foo Fighters if he didn't have strong songs on his own that people wanted to hear.
Well, that's right. And then once he's through with all that in November and December, he does about, I don't know if it's 24 dates, something like that, around the U.S. with Nita Strauss opening for him, So he's out there working it, man. You got to give him some credit. He's not just like coasting. Now, maybe his bus is nicer than a band's bus would be at this level. I don't know. But yeah, he's out there doing it, man. So I'm impressed. And I was glad that I finally had the chance to see him.
Absolutely. I'm glad, because I know that was a bummer for you. There is nothing worse than when you show up and you think you're in the right place at the right time and you've missed the material.
I'm like, oh, jeez, man.
Because
you kidding me.
Please welcome to who was it that you saw instead?
Oh, it was that British band that I thought was not that good.
Okay.
I can't even remember their name. I was so
Okay.
pissed off about it right now.
But you're, the people are setting up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here we go, boo, and then please welcome to the stage. Or it's what you're looking for, and that's not it. And then
That's
you
not
say
it.
to yourself, "Son of a bitch, it's the wrong order. I missed him completely."
Yep. Was not thrilled about that. Not going to
You
lie
said,
about that.
I don't want to sit here and listen to this. Where's that T-shirt stand?
But I'll tell you this, as a guy who needs to lose a good 40 pounds, Wolfie's got to lose some weight, dude. He is over 300 pounds.
Oh my goodness.
That is not good for him. And he's married now. You'd think his wife would be like, okay, we are going to do a diet thing here. But I know life on the road, it's not easy
I was going to say that has to
eat
be
right.
I mean, unless you're like who is it for the dead Bob Weir is like this crazy workout freak and he brings all this gym with him. I mean, it's got to be tough. You're sitting on a bus, hey, what do you want to eat? Something easy, something that tastes good. Hey, you got snacks on the bus. Are you going to go for a run? Not really. It's like 10 degrees outside and I don't even know where I am. So yeah, no thanks. It's rough.
But he's as big as both his other guitar players put together.
Oh, jeez.
He's just, I mean, now when he was with Van Halen, he was a little thick,
Yeah.
but all right, so what? So he's got a few extra pounds. He's playing the bass. You need that to play the bass, and then it's just, he was so heavy. And I'm like, look, I know this is like a lot of people of your generation, man. And mine too. Like I said, it's not like I'm coming from a svelte place where I can be like, all you people are fat. No, I am in need of slimming down. Not as big a need as he is, though.
Jeez. And he's what? He's
33
91?
or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he needs to take care of himself, man. And,
Yeah, because we want him around for quite some time.
I know Valerie's maybe had a little struggle with her weight, but, Eddie never did because he smoked and drank all fucking day.
Well, let's not go there to take care of the problem.
Exactly.
Hey everybody, this is Britt Lightning from Vixen, and you're listening to the Ugly American Werewolf in London.
How was the sound?
The sound was great, and it wasn't too loud. Which
Okay.
in a venue like that can always be a problem, especially for a hard rock or a heavy metal band. And I mistakenly did not bring my earplugs. I'm like, I get in there, I'm like, uh-oh, I hope everything's okay. And it was great. Like, I wasn't in any danger of not being able to hear. In fact, me and my buddy could talk to each other during the show and make comments like, oh, okay, that was a nice run, or are these guys not singing? Because I want to talk about the opening act a little bit. But yeah, the sound was so good. It was crisp, it was quality, and it was not like blow you out the door. And after the first band got off, I'm like, okay, well, all right, it's going to be a lot louder for Mammoth, right? And it really wasn't. It was really probably at about the same level. And when Wolfie would do his crowd work or whatever, it wasn't blaring. It was like someone just talking to you with a microphone. I think the sound turned out great.
Okay. Because to me, there's nothing worse than going to a show and it's so loud you can't even hear anything.
Exactly.
Except for you can hear the drum and the bass is, knocking you back. But the high end stuff is just gone. And how was the show? I don't really. It was kind of loud. It was just a mess.
Not sure.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what's cool is my buddy, his son was talking about how he's doing a lot of getting certified to do like sound work and lighting work and stuff like that. And he's talking about, how the speakers up top, they kind of come down and they curve down. Mm-hmm. He's like, well, they're all timed just a split second differently. So the one that hits the crowd kind of 3 feet back from the stage, it gets it. But then the people who are 30 feet back, because the speaker is tilted back, they get it just a split second later. However, they get it basically all at the same time. And I'm like, well, that's really cool. I didn't realize. I mean, that makes sense. That at all. But I never really thought about that. It's like, yeah, there's split second timing just so that, everybody hears it when they're supposed to hear it.
That's really cool. I mean, I guess they call it sound engineering for a reason.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
You would think in a place like that it wouldn't really matter because it's not that big anyway, but...
I guess, but I mean, sound travels so much slower than light that maybe even that amount of space, it would have an effect.
Probably so. So I'm like, okay, that's why I like to take actual musicians with me to the show who can teach me things about how this stuff works.
Yeah. I mean, all I see is, I mean, I like to walk, if I can, I like to walk past the soundboard just to kind of see the setup. I have no idea what it means. There's a lot of cool flashing lights on it, but yeah,
Right.
to have somebody, ooh, what does this do? Don't touch that. To have somebody explain that, because I mean, to me, I saw that at the Cult show that was in, it sounds like about the same space. And I was thinking to myself, like, this looks very complicated for a space that's this small. I can see if it's like the Metallica deal where you're trying to make this work with a 70,000 people and
Right.
being outside. But maybe that's it. Maybe it is that complicated even for small spaces.
Well, you want to give everybody the best quality. You want everybody to be able to hear the show well. So, that's why they engineer that stuff. And
Yeah.
I thought it was really great.
You know, it's funny that you talk about that. Imagine seeing those like shows back in the, I don't know, like the 60s into the early 70s when they
God.
didn't have any of this. It was just basically just put a whole bunch of cabinet speakers up there and let's just blast them out.
That's right. Just as much sound as the power will give us. And yeah,
People in
when
the
we
back,
go.
good luck.
Now, the band that opened for them was called Intervals.
Okay.
They were a Canadian band, and I would call them a prog band with
Okay.
a heavy metal bent to them, but definitely a prog band.
Had you heard anything from them before?
Never heard of them.
Okay.
Never heard from them.
That's actually kind of cool because you're going in there totally unbiased.
Yeah. And we get in there, and the guy, okay, so it's a 4-piece. As I'm staring at the stage, left is bass, center's a guy playing lead guitar, right is another somewhat lead guitarist, and in the back there's a drummer.
Okay.
I see him doing the guy in the middle doing some crowd work, so I assume he's also a singer. But as we go on, they don't really sing. It's kind of all instrumentals,
All right.
which is interesting, which is probably why not that many people have heard of them. And you know that Zeus from Shout It Out Loudcast would hate everything they did because he does not like instrumentals. He's like, it's a song, sing something. And they're Canadian, so they're very nice. But the guy would get up there and he would talk fast, like, hey, thanks for coming out. We're Intervals. Do you like that show? Thanks so much. We're going to have Van Halen out here. I'm like, okay, slow down there, kid. I know you're excited to be out here. Slow it down a little bit. And we talk about how we've got, a new song off the album. What was cool for them was they had their own merch table, their own T-shirts. They were selling vinyl, not CDs at the show.
Okay.
Well, they may have been selling CDs. I only saw the vinyl. And I guess they've got a new album out. They've been around, it sounds like 10 years.
Okay.
So, they've been going a long time. Now, because I like prog music and I like lead guitar, I actually did like some of the stuff that they were doing.
Okay.
I thought it was cool. The bass player was obviously a Rush fan and a prog fan. But the lead guitarist guy, and he's wearing a hat. He's wearing like a ball cap. I'm like, dude, are you bald under there? Why are you wearing that on stage?
Yes.
The answer is yes, he was bald.
Yeah. There's no way. There's no way you would do that. Oh no, I really like this hat. Okay.
There's no other reason, right? So, and he would introduce all these songs, which, had different names, but you would never know because there's no singing. There's no lyrics. There's nothing.
I would have a hard time believing. You grew up in Canada. You're a 3-piece band.
They're a 4-piece. They're a 4-piece.
Oh, 4-piece.
Yeah.
You play proggy rock music. There's no way you're not a fan of Rush. Oh no, I didn't. No, come on, be quiet. It's indoctrinated in you. It's hockey and Rush, and be quiet.
And pipe it down. But no, they've made it looks like 4 albums plus a couple of EPs. Their new album's called Memory Palace, and they've been doing some stuff from that. Circadian was the one before that. I know they did some stuff from that. So yeah, it's kind of weird. I think the main dude is this Aaron Marshall guy.
Okay.
And he's the guy who's up front, and then everyone else has been replaced at some point.
Oh, okay. That's got to be tough. I mean, you're 10 years into this. You're opening a club date, and you get to the point where it's like, we're never going to be nationally known, or even internationally known. So yeah, I'm just going to go work in insurance.
I mean, maybe, yeah. I mean, here's the thing. There's a lot of bands that are big in Canada that just never get big here for whatever reason.
Because they don't sing.
That could have something to do with it, yes. Or or the DJs are like, this is another Bryan Adams, is it? Get these guys out of here. But yeah, no, they've been going for more than 10 years. They put out some albums, but I think, this main dude is kind of the guy who kind of keeps it all going. But, they're positive. Like, please check out our merch stand. They probably had more kinds of T-shirts than Wolfgang or Mammoth did. And they were good. They were fun.
Let's hear it for how fucking amazing Intervals is. Come on. Man, they're so fucking good. Seriously, go pick up their new album. It like just came out today. Go pick it out. Fucking, it's amazing.
And I'll tell you, there's a guitar. Eventually the guy comes out. The tech was always bringing 2 guitars at a time to the lead guy and then the other lead guy to switch them out for different songs. Mm-hmm. And eventually he brings out this Strandberg Bowden NX7 guitar. Now, if it's not Gibson or, Jackson or one of the big ones, Hamer, I don't really know. Paul Reed Smith, I don't know what it is. This is a relatively new one. He's like, that is a really nice guitar. It weighs about 3 pounds. It's like super light. And what did he say about the frets? That they were, I don't know if it's like the guitar, the neck is slightly bent to make them easy to play. I can't remember exactly the term that he used, but it was like, even the frets are special. It's like, do you know what that means? Like, he told me the term. He's like, you know what that means? I'm like, no, I have no idea.
Okay, I'm looking at a picture of this. This looks very funky.
Solid body construction, but you can have humbuckers for the pickups if you want.
And the body looks very strange.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, okay. So it's interesting. So if you look at the tailpiece, like where the strings go in, they're not straight across. They're staggered. Okay. What's the headstock look like?
No headstock.
Okay, so it's backwards. Okay. So the nut or the ball of the string is up top instead of at the bottom, and then you tune at the bottom. Yeah, and even the pickups are off. They're not straight across. They're diagonal.
Multi-scale maple fingerboard for better intonation and easier bends.
Okay.
Stainless steel frets. Yeah, I mean, it looked cool, and it's you can get one for, I guess, a little under $2,000. And again, it was cool to have a musician who knows, what that was. Like, look at that. Let me tell you about that. I'm like, all right, that's cool.
Instead of, what's that? That looks weird. Uh-huh.
Yeah, man. Yeah, dude, weird. But they did their thing. It was kind of fun. And they really only took about a half an hour, to flip things around and get ready for Mammoth. And then Mammoth comes out to great fanfare, like, oh, yeah, Wolfie's here, hooray.
Cool.
And they jump right into it. They do 15 songs, all of them from the first 2 albums, and they just kind of ripped through them.
But you said there was some crowd work too, though, right?
Definitely. I mean, he was just happy, just talk about how thank you so much for supporting us. Thank you for coming out. He used some bad language, I guess,
Well, you got to get the crowd pumped up.
Yeah, his mom's not watching him, right? So he can say that his voice is high. He has a high-pitched voice.
Your speaking voice.
Yeah. And it just makes him sound so much younger than he is. Like, you're 33, you're married, you're 300 pounds. You should, hey, how y'all doing tonight? You should sound like Luther Vandross out there or something. But, hey, guys, it's great to see everybody out there tonight. Yay! You guys want to build some Legos in the corner? It's what I was expecting him to say.
Good time? Yeah. It's Friday night, man. I'm having a great time, man. Thank you so much for making the end of this already incredible tour so amazing. Thank you so much, you guys.
But it was still, he knew what his job was as the lead singer, as the guy whose name's on the band and everyone's there to see. He came out to do that. He would come out and do that, and they rocked out. I mean, I wasn't super familiar with all the songs from the first album, but I was pretty familiar with the second album. And he said, look, we've got to do this second tour on the second album or whatever. And he's like, we're going to do songs that we didn't do on the first tour. So they're switching out stuff from the last tour they did and putting in stuff that they didn't do the first time around. So you really do get to hear them play everything, basically, from these first 2. If you've seen them the last 2 years, you would have basically seen everything they've ever recorded.
We also have a new album that came out last year, but it's still new, right? It's called Mammoth II. You guys have it? Okay. Well, we've been doing something fun on this run, and we've been playing songs that we haven't played before this tour from Mammoth II, and we're going to do that right here. We're going to play one song for you called Erase Me.
They're not going to do any covers. That's all you've got. Here's the first album. Go.
Well, it's funny you say that.
Uh-huh.
Because he told that story about being a 3-piece.
Okay.
He took about a minute. This is about halfway through the show, maybe a little more than halfway through. He's starting to tell the story about being a 3-piece. And so we may have to work in some acoustic stuff, like to balance all this stuff out. And there's a song called Distance, which you probably know off the first album, which he recorded acoustically.
But once we got to Distance, I realized that it was probably going to be pretty tough to pull off with the three of us. So I figured, why don't I try it the way I wrote it, with an acoustic guitar and just me and my lonesome. Yeah.
So when he's doing that, he's the only one on stage. Everybody leaves the stage.
Okay.
And he's doing his crowd work, and he's got this acoustic guitar. He's like, so, after doing that, I thought that might be fun to once in a while come out here and do an acoustic song. So here's Wonderwall. And he starts to do
Okay.
and he goes, I'm just fucking kidding. We're not playing Wonderwall. I had you, didn't I? It's like, there's always some jerk at a party with an acoustic guitar playing Wonderwall.
So when he goes into that, I mean, it's. I would imagine everybody knew what it was. Did he say Wonderwall, or did he just start playing it?
No, he said Wonderwall, and he just went into it. Yeah.
I'm sure everybody was like, yeah, collectively, what is this? Like, I'll take a cover, but not this. That's hilarious. I love it. Nah, I'm just messing with you.
Nah.
Good enough, or at least good enough for me. So I thought, why don't I try it by myself the way I wrote it on an acoustic guitar. And it was a really special thing for 3 shows, so I thought that whenever we would happen to do our headline tour, I would try this out. So if you guys will let me. Here's Wonderwall. No, just kidding. I didn't always start singing it. Like I've been doing this for a couple shows, but when I sing it, people are really like, "Oh fuck, he's really doing that."
No, we recorded Distance acoustically, so here it is. So then he goes into Distance and he does that by himself. Just him and his guitar and his voice. So at least he's got a sense of humor about it.
He does seem like he has a very he doesn't take himself too seriously. I love that he gets into stupid stuff on like Twitter, and then he's just like, yeah, you people are idiots. You think I'm actually being serious with most of this stuff. So very self-effacing.
Well, he was the first celebrity interaction I ever had on Twitter when we started the show.
Oh, that's right. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was we were just starting out. We had maybe 20 followers, if that, right? And if I put something out there, if I was really lucky, really, really lucky, I'd get maybe 200 views of it, something like that. Earlier that day, I had picked up my daughter from school. We went to the park to let her play. And one of those moms who's like got Asperger's or whatever, just like wants to talk at you about everything. Like, and then my son, he played chess. Oh, is he pretty good? Yes, he's very good. And he did it. I'm like, okay. And then we went I'm like, okay, I really don't care. So what I did was like, you know what? At 3:30, I've got a call, and I put in my headphones and then I just say, oh, hey guys, it's Mac. Listen, I'm at the park, so I'm just going to stay on mute until you guys need me. And then I listened to Wolfgang on the Eddie Trunk Show and just got out of, having to listen to, and then we went on vacation, and then my child did this. I'm like, okay, yeah, I don't want to hear it. Then that night, right before I go to bed, I get in bed and I just sent out a tweet because I don't know anything about this. I'd never been on Twitter till we started the show. So I'm like, was it? And I tagged Wolfie and Eddie, but I'm like, is it wrong that I told a mom at the playground that I was on a phone call so I wouldn't have to listen to her, so I could listen to Wolfgang Van Halen on Eddie Trunk? And then I turned it down. I turned on the lights. I turned off the lights, and I kind of lay back in bed. And all of a sudden, boom, there's a like. Or there's a heart, like, oh, we got something. Which is usually the only likes I ever got were from you, right? I'm like, oh, is Jackson done with work? Is he already, liking what I have here? Hold on. And it was Wolfgang Van Halen going, no, metal hands, guitar. And it was just fascinating to watch it go from 300 views, 475 views,
wow,
635 views, 912 views. And I'm like watching it go up into the thousands for someone who never had more than 200. It was fascinating. And I wrote him back like, thank you so much. Still, for a novice Twitter user, it was the highlight of my entire month, I think.
And it's cool that you can have interaction like that. I mean, as much as I hate Twitter and there's just stupid people saying stupid things all the time on it, it's cool when you can have something like that. Will we ever get to talk to him? I hope so. But to have that 2 seconds of just kind of the back and forth, that's pretty cool.
That's right. We have a little interaction with a star, and that's really cool. And he seems to get that part of it. I mean, once in a while he has to respond to trolls like, "Oh, you're just making money off of your dad's name." He goes, "It's literally my name, you jackass."
Yeah.
What do you want me to do? Change my name?
Well, what I like is when he says, he's like, "Yeah, that's all I've ever been put on this earth to do," or something. Like he just cranks him up with the back and forth.
He's good at it. Yeah, I like it. But yeah, I mean, he would come out like, here's right before they do Mammoth, like, here's a song that the band's named after, or he'd do Think It Over, and he's like, this was my dad's favorite.
Thank you very much, Louisville. This next song was my dad's favorite song. It's called Think It Over.
So it was good to kind of see those things. But I think that my favorite was Take a Bow, which was the last song they did before the encore, just because there's a lot of tapping in that. There's just a whole lot of tapping in it. And I just thought it was really, really cool. Or maybe it was Better Than You that I liked. And then also Take a Bow was really good. But still, what he does with that guitar, he could do that all the time. He just doesn't always. I mean, he'll bend a lot of notes. He's almost doing blues solos for a lot of stuff. And then once in a while, he breaks out that, sick tapping that his father made famous. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, he's not doing that every time.
Yeah, because that would get, as much as I love that would get old in a hurry if it was every song.
Well, yeah, but it would still be really cool. I don't know. And I like when he breaks out Erase Me. It's like, we didn't do this. Like we said, we did different songs off the new album, so now we're breaking out songs that we haven't done before. Breaks out Erase Me, and it was really good. So I'm like, you know what, this is pretty good. I sometimes wonder exactly what he's singing about, especially with names like Think It Over, You're to Blame, Better Than You, and the lyrics are like, I'm better than you, I'm smarter than you, I'm tougher than kind of thing. I'm like, well, who are you singing that to? Maybe it's to those trolls on the internet. I don't know.
Maybe.
And then Don't Back Down is how he finished up the whole show.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, it was, I thought they were solid live. I thought he was funny live. It sounds like they just started to run out of stuff in Nashville the night before. Like, I think Nashville hit them really hard. Like, the t-shirts for Wolfgang were gone. I could only get one with this hideous skeleton on them. Like, yeah, I don't want that. The intervals ran out of some of their discs in Nashville. It's like, sorry, Nashville beat you to it, because this is the end of the tour, so we don't have a ton of stuff left. So it's good to hear that they're being received well around the nation.
Yeah, and supported, because I know that they do make a lot of their money from that sales of merchandise. I mean, I would doubt that the opening band really gets anything of the gate. They're just kind of happy to be there, so that's cool that they were selling stuff.
And that's what I said. When the Wolf Cub wanted a $50 Journey T-shirt, I'm like, no. Mm-hmm. We're not buying that here. I'll go online and get you one for half price. That's not a big deal. But for a band like Mammoth, or even Intervals, buy a T-shirt. I mean, yeah, Wolfie's set, but the other guys in the band could probably use a little bit. And, wouldn't you like to have a Mammoth T-shirt? And they were only $35 versus the 50s and 60s at the Journey concert. So
to me, that's what really bends me out of shape, is that, I mean, I know how much a T-shirt costs, and it's not anywhere close to $50. Come on, 35 is still a lot, but it's much more reasonable.
Absolutely. But the one that had the big Mammoth logo on it, they only had those. They had them in XXL. I guess I could have bought that and then shrunk it. I just figured, look, I'll be able to get it off the website one of these days. I'm not that worried about it. But I'll support them as much as I can. But it was fun, and just like, these days, a lot of times I buy the tickets, months and months in advance. And then it gets to the night of the show. I'm like, do I really want to go and be with a bunch of people? And have to deal with parking, and some drunk steps on my shoes. And there's that guy in front of me who's filming the entire time. And that guy was still there. But, it's like, do I really want to get into this? And, like, thankfully, my buddy Brian, he did want to go. I'm like, okay, yeah, he's going to make me go.
Well, and the nice thing, too, was a Friday night, too. Yeah, there's nothing worse than when, like, you kind of really aren't paying attention. You said you buy the tickets, and you're like, oh, it's a Tuesday? Oh, come on.
What was I thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, absolutely. So, I mean, it was a fun show. I definitely highly recommend going to see Wolfgang Van Halen's Mammoth. I mean, I think they're just a fun show. It's a little layered. Look, the bass player, you would have loved this guy. He was all over the stage. The way it's set up is obviously Wolfgang's center stage. Mm-hmm. The two guitar players are on opposite sides on him, right and left of the stage.
Okay.
With a pretty wide gap. And then to the left between the dude and Wolfie, there's the bass player, because he's back there singing along.
Okay.
And then the drummer's kind of between Wolfie and the other guitar player on the right. So that's kind of how they do the stage. Mm. And the bass player, he's running around the stage, and he's getting up and clapping his hands to make sure people are, getting ready, getting up for this song or whatever. And he's kind of a short little guy with a sleeve down one arm, but he was active. He's running around, whereas like I feel like the guitar players don't want to be that far away from their pedals. Okay. Also, Wolfie will move a little bit right and left to do solos. Mm-hmm. So I think they kind of need to be in the no-fly zone. They need to be bumping into him. And let's face it, there's quite a bit to bump into, Wolfgang. I'm sorry to harp on that, but
we're only saying this because we love you.
We love you, and we want you to be healthy, and we don't want you looking like the lead singer of Loverboy, Mike Reno. You got time. You're a young man. People love you. Nobody likes Mike Reno.
I do, and maybe some people in Canada, but for the most part, no.
I don't even think the Canadians do. I think they just kind of like tolerate him. But anyway, so yes, thumbs up Excellent. For Mammoth, thumbs up for Wolfie, and hey, when they're open for Foo Fighters and when they're open for Metallica and when they're doing their own shows, they're doing, I don't know, is it 50 more shows this year? Is it 60? They're working. Mm-hmm. There's definitely some breaks in the summer, but plus some big festivals over in Europe. Check them out. I think you'll dig them.
Excellent.
That was my take on seeing Mammoth with Wolfgang Van Halen live May 17th at the Mercury Ballroom in Louisville, Kentucky. A fun show. I'm glad I finally got to see him. I was supposed to see him open for Metallica in April of 2023, and I kind of messed that up. And it was a fun show. It was good music. Some of Wolfie's guitar work was really amazing. He was pretty good with the crowd work, too. We definitely had a little bit of fun with that. And I highly recommend seeing him. And he's not going anywhere. I mean, well, he is going some places. He's going to Europe to open for Metallica more, to do some festivals, to do some of his own shows. And then he'll be back in the fall doing his own show, his own headline tour, I believe, with Nina Strauss opening. Plus, I think he's opening some dates for Foo Fighters. He is a busy guy. All the guys in Mammoth are. And it's got to be great this early in your career, 2 albums in, to get all these seriously high-profile gigs and get some tours of their own. And so much of what we talk about here is classic rock that happened 40, 50, even more years ago. It's great to be able to experience some new music, even if it's from an identifiable brand that is keeping rock and roll alive for the next generation. So go check out Mammoth, listen to their music, go see them live if you can. And we want to know, folks, did we get something right? Did we get something wrong? Did we miss the point? Did we leave out your favorite part? You have to let us know. Email us. It's uglyamericanwerewolf@gmail.com. Let us know the bands, the concerts, the albums, the DVDs, the books, the rock properties you want to hear us talk about here on the show. Make sure you subscribe and download so you don't miss a week of the Ugly American Werewolf in London. And if you think about it, guys, hey, please give us a positive 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. It means the world to us. It helps us grow the show. And if you send it to us, we might just read it on an episode. Thanks as always to Pantheon Podcast for making us part of the family. And thank you to our sponsor, rarevinyl.com, where if you use the code UGLY, you can save 10% off one entire order of vinyl and CD treasures. That's it for now, folks. We've brought you this episode despite power outages and health consequences and delays in our schedule, but we've gotten it out to you, so we hope you enjoy it. And to all you rockers all around the world, be cool and keep doing what you do to keep rock alive.